Okay, welcome back to the JavaScript Dojo. Today we're going to go over functions, and this should be pretty fun. So functions, basically, I'm going to read this again and give you my concept. Um, let's see, functions. They let you wrap reusable code under a name and call it whenever needed. You can think of functions as a container that basically holds code in place, and you still name it, but then you can call it later, so you could reuse it over and over and over. If you have a calculation, a formula, or something you need to use more than once, that's when a function call is good to have. And defining a basic function, you use the term function, and this is the traditional method. So there's going to be more than one way to make a function in JavaScript. There's a modern way and there's the traditional way. I like the traditional way, which is this, where you say function and you give it a name. So it's kind of similar to let or const, but you're actually saying this is a function, and that's built into JavaScript. So function, greet, and then you see here at how it's got the parentheses. If you were to leave that blank and there's no name there, then it wouldn't have a parameter. So basically we're saying name, and that variable, it creates a temporary variable that can be used within the function. And in this simple function, basically it says function greet and then name, return hello plus name. So we're using the variable as what we're returning. And another part to think about is return. Whenever you see return inside of a function, that value is going to be returned to the function. So that'll be the response. So when we go further down, it says console.log, and then you're calling the function. So greet Alice. So see, it put quotes here. So that actually sends that over and replaces name. That's the value that goes into the function. And so here on that function call, the name would become Alice. So it would say, hello Alice, exclamation point. So it's putting all that together. So console.log greet Bob would be another function call where you don't have to rewrite all this code. It just reuses that again. And there's countless ways you can use this. And I'm trying to think, so when we have the parameter in here and we're actually using that information, it replaces it with that. And I did use this tool here so we can kind of look at it in real time. So I put the same one over here. So return hello plus name console. So if I even just replace Alice with Kevin, so now I'm doing greet hello Alice, that'll change. So if I run this, see it says Kevin, and then the second one still says Bob. So it's actually putting the name Kevin here. Functions, this function doesn't just run by itself. It's basically a container just holding that. So later in the code, you can use that wherever you need it. And console.bob, so I could even change that to John. And then run. So hello Kevin, hello John. And the console just keeps the log history, so I can clear that and then run. This is all that ran in that code. I do have some more code down here. Ignore that for a minute. And let's see here. All right. What was I going to say? So greet, let me just type this out here. Greet. If you're not, we're only using console.log so we can see it over here, but in your program, you might be using it as greet Kevin. That's all you would do to actually do the function call. So if I run, you won't see it over here because we're not logging that into the console. But if we're using this function, say the function was just return, let's see, return 18, and we'll change this to a number. And let's just say number would be 18. So if we did return number. So if we just did greet 18 and we ran that, nothing happens again in the console. Let's see here. Greet number. Oh, that's funny. It's still calling this because of the way it was set up. So let's clear that. So greet 18. Actually, we can console.log so we can actually see the value real quick before I show you one other thing on this. Let's run. See how it's got 18? And we don't need all of this other stuff for now. Run 18, clear. Now if we're going to use this in our code, say we've tested it, that you can a lot of times debug and figure if something's working. So we had a working greet 18, and then you can do one of your if statements or something. So let's actually say let car or let age equal greet 18. So it's going to this returns the number that is inputted here. So age will now equal 18. And so if we said let's see, let time or let value equal, we're going to do another greet. Value equals, let's say it's 100, whatever that value might mean. And then we could actually, since it's going to return, this will send to greet 100 and it'll return the value. So value would actually equal 100 when this is all said and done. Now if we want to console.log, and we'll do age plus value. So if we run this, what'll happen? It actually did the math for both of those. Okay. Real basics, but just so you can kind of get used to that syntax. Now, when we're looking back at the lesson here, arrow functions. So they have a modern way, which is saying the exact same thing. This is where it gets a little more confusing looking, but constant square equals n in parentheses. This little symbol here, when you have equals and an arrow in a statement, is just saying return. So it's return n times n, console.log square of 5. So it's creating the function across one line. And if we look at that, console.log square of 5, it's giving square the value 5 here, and then it's saying return 5 times 5. So that would equal that, and then it's going to actually just print it out right away. If you were just using square 5 in your code, though, it's putting the value as square 5, and you can call that anywhere you need to. Let's see here. Oh, in multiple lines, you need curly braces and the return. So it's the same exact concept. Constant sum equals a plus b, so whatever was given, return sum. And let's go back and look at that in here. So I did put that one in here. So the modern function, let square equal n. So I did it with the names on this one. So the n, and you could use const or let, but it makes you're basically defining a variable and saying, oh, it equals a function, and that function returns this value. In this case, it's putting it all together. So console.log square, I'm going to leave this one out for a minute because we need this. And if we were to clear this and run this, hello Alice, hello Bob. So it automatically is going to return hello plus the variable. And when we called that function right here, this is a function call just because it's already created. And we're putting Alice inside of this parenthesis bracket. And it's saying return the n, which would be Alice on the first call, so it's going to print it out on the first console log, and on the second console log, it's going to do the same thing, but it's going to take Bob and put that as n and return hello plus Bob, which, as you can see over here, hello Alice, hello Bob, and again the 118 was from this calculation up here. And let's clear this. So it's going to go over, I saw this last part here, default parameters. This is kind of nice because if in your program you actually don't have something that's going to be fed into a function, but you need the function information, you can have default, so name equals. So in your parameter, you're going to basically assign name equals world. So when the function is actually called, if the function's called with greet with no parameter, it's going to default to hello world because it's returning hello plus, and there was nothing in there, so it's going to use the default. And name Sam, so Sam was put in there this time, so it's going to override the default, so it's actually just going to replace all of this with Sam, and then hello plus Sam. I hope the way I'm explaining this is making sense, but if we look back in here, if I were to actually say, okay, we have these names, but I put in this equals, so in the modern one, you can do the exact same thing, n equals Kevin. So if I run this right now, it's going to say Alice and Bob, but let's just say I have the blank one here. So console.log square, and there's no parameter, see inside of this area, you leave that blank. It should use n equals Kevin to automatically fill in this variable, so hello Kevin. So if we run this, boom, we see a third one, hello Kevin. Let's clear that off, hello Kevin. And if we weren't using any of this other information, we only wanted to log what's the blank one look like, we should just see, well, at the top one as well as up there. Let me delete that whole part. Run. Hello, Kevin. All right, let's move on. What does the return do in a function? Prints a value to the console, sends a value back to whoever called the function, declares a new variable, or stops the program. Well, it does send the value back to the function call, so whoever called the function. Rewrite as the arrow function stored in a const. So const double, so creating a variable called equals, and we know that it's going to use the variable n as its placeholder, so we need to create n inside of parentheses. So const double equals a function of n, return is this little symbol, n times 2. So if we check answer, I'm going to copy this so we can use that in a minute, but if we check answer, parameters, let's see, expression syntax for one parameters, parens are optional. Okay, well, let's come back over here. We're learning live here. Square equal n, return whatever it is, equal and return n times 2. Arrow function to use params, which we did. Expression syntax for one parameter, parentheses are optional. Well, I'm going to try to paste that over here so we can look and see if that's accurate. This is how you would debug when you're programming too. So we want a console.log the double, and we'll give the value of n 5. So let's see here. We want to return n times 2. Okay, so it was the right answer. And it says when it has 1, you don't have to use parentheses. Run. So it still works like that. Get rid of this. So I would say it would be best practice to leave the parentheses because you want to make the code readable, which is why I like using the classic define the function, have the parameter, and then actually have it between the braces. I think that that makes it easier to read. So this was actually the right answer. So we're going to skip over this here. I think it just has because this white space or something. All right. Write an arrow function multiply that takes two numbers and returns their product. Then log multiply 6 times 7. So we just need to write the actual function called multiply. Write an arrow function. So it wants us to use the modern functionality. So let's just say const multiply equals, so const multiply equals, and it wants us to use the arrow function, but it takes two values. So I think we learned that, let's just say it's I and n. It's going to take two different values, and it's going to two numbers and returns their products. Then log multiply. An arrow function. I'm going to have to go back because I think that the syntax is weird because it still wants you to use braces. So I'm going to see if it has the return arrow. Let's learn this part together here. I don't use the modern one very much, but function. Oh, so you do the return and then the braces, and then you actually say the word return? Interesting. So you would think that even though it's going to return that, you would need the return. Okay, let's go see if we can get this right here. Okay, so const multiply equals n comma I, and we're going to have that return curly braces. We want that to return, and takes the two numbers and returns their product, so multiply. So let's see, return n times I, return n times I. That should be good because it's gonna then it's gonna throw in 6 and 7 will refill these variables, and then it's gonna return n times I. Perfect. 42. Arrow function works. I was nervous about that one. I don't use the modern one. I like the classic function one again. Okay, what is const f equal x equals 10, return x times 2, return when called as f blank? Well, it has the default because we just learned about that, x equals 10. So if nothing was actually put in there, now it's not giving us 10 as an option, so something must be actually, the syntax or something must be off. So x equals 10. If you call the function with nothing in it, normally it would automatically fill the x as 10, so x times 2. So it's going to probably be undefined because there's not actually, no? F. It should return 10 times 2, so 20. Oh, I see it right there. All right. And that was it for functions. That one is complicated, but once you grasp the concept, you can pretty much go into your editor and write anything you want. And when you're doing coding, I usually try to think of it as like you have to imagine the whole picture, and each of these pieces are just tools to help you do your code. Again, going back to like the soda example, first you're defining the variable Kevin. So you might have that in your code. And then you might say max sodas or sodas equals, so let sodas equals 6. So then you have a variable for me, you have a soda. Okay, and then you can combine those, and maybe you create an if statement. If Kevin has more than 0 sodas, continue. So yes, and then what happens if I have more than 0 sodas? Then you have inside your if statement, maybe you have something, a function call, and earlier you built a function that said, anytime we check to see if Kevin has Cokes, go back to that function and then do this whole statement. And depending on what you're creating, it comes in really handy because then you're not just writing out each line of code. So then if you were to create Kevin, Bob, Alice, Carlos, if you had all these names with each independent variables, that same function call is going to run when you put in like the name, if it had, name and soda account. Or if you're building a game, that's the easiest way to think about that is you will get into objects later, or in programming a lot of times they'll have a whole object that's used and it's built, and inside of that object has all this information, and you're only creating an instance of that object. So if the game's over, or there's no more people that need sodas, or whatever it is, or you gets reset, boom, the object gets called again. You're kind of doing functions in a similar way because anytime you need it, you're calling it. So it's just a box, a construct for all of that. Hope that was helpful. And let's look and see what we've got coming up next. Next we have arrays. All right, we'll hit arrays next time. You guys take care.